Lendotopic, and welcome to Cats and Dogs, where we open the kennel doors of politics and see who runs out, who's in there licking their wounds, and who's chasing their own tails. I join you from the Cats and Dogs COVID-19 quarantine clinic. Yes, I tested positive. That's really true. And it's not nice. Confused, irritated, and short-tempered in irrational ways, these are the symptoms of coronavirus. They are also the same symptoms caused in French President Emmanuel Macron when exposed to Muslims. In most countries, if you insult women, it's called misogyny. If you insult black people, it's called racism. If you insult Jews, it's called anti-Semitism. And if you insult Islam, at least in France, it's called freedom of speech. Yes, after the brutal murder of teacher Samuel Paty, the French president showed he won't compromise on what looks like one of his core principles: Islamophobia. You see, excitable Emmanuel delivered a lecture on the importance of freedom of speech, including permitting offensive cartoons targeting the prophet. When asked about the case of Judon Mbala, a French comedian convicted in 2015 and given a 2-month suspended sentence for anti-Semitic remarks, Macron, the freedom fighter of our time, replied, "Well, if crime fighters fight crime and firefighters fight fire, what do you expect me as a freedom fighter to fight?" Yes, freedom. Actually, a comedian said that, but Macron would have said it too, unless he thought the comic was a Muslim. In addition to cartoonists, police officers have been given a free rein during Macron's presidency. The Macron administration has also pursued journalists from the Disclose media organisation, who revealed illegal French arms sales to support Saudi Arabia's war against Yemen. That's claimed thousands of lives. So Macron's free speech crusade does have its limits, and anti-Islam rhetoric seems fine by the French freedom laws. So you can go to jail for denying the Holocaust. And while Paris is becoming the most nudist-friendly city in the world, yes, nudist-friendly, wearing hijab is a crime. Why? It's a Macron climate change policy. Unlike nudity, wearing hijab increases body temperature. That increases air temperature. And this heats up the whole planet. Yes, it's official. Hijabs are overheating the world. Want to see the reaction? Macron's anti-Islam remarks have led to calls for Muslim boycotts of French brands. Ironically, France has urged Middle Eastern states to ignore that. The Foreign Ministry of France stated, "These calls for boycotts are baseless and should stop immediately." Come on, you can't have your cake and eat it, even if it is a great big presidential hypocrisy-flavoured French gâteau. Oh, and as the Disclosed media outlet showed, none of this applies to French sales of arms to one Muslim country, Saudi Arabia, to wipe out Muslims in another, namely Yemen. We'll come back to that in a minute. Now let's take a trip in our Cats and Dogs time machine and see how history could regard the Chevalier of Freedom of Speech.
"1,000 years ago today, the Emperor of the French Republic was born. He loved to be the center of attention from birth. Historians speculate he was born 6 months before the due date. The sky was the limit for the young Emmanuel. He would poke his nose into anything. He was everywhere, and you could not shut him up. As a school child, Emmanuel loved microphones. He loved to be the center of attention. One day, after he lectured on the importance of friendship, brotherhood, love, and compassion, he sent his school gang to beat one of his fellow students black and blue. He was not a high achiever at high school, although he loved to be. So he married his teacher and became a high achiever. Some say he became the teacher's pet. Emmanuel finally found his way into the world of politics, where he could talk the talk without having to walk the walk. He never gave up his childhood habits. He delivered after-dinner speeches. He was everywhere. Had his own gang. Beat his fellow countrymen into a pulp. Played games he didn't know. Poked his nose into everything. Loved microphones, and nobody could shut him up.
As I said, I expected the de facto leader of Saudi Arabia, the self-proclaimed custodian of the two holy mosques, to condemn Macron's Islamophobic stance. Let's speak now on the phone with the Saudi Crown Prince and get the facts. Mr. Crown Prince, what's that noise? Are you drowning?
Hello, Mr. Memphis.
I'm actually Mr. Lembit. Are you okay?
Sure, I'm okay. I'm swimming with the brothers at my beach resort in Nice.
Swimming? I thought you went to France to condemn the French authorities in person for the offensive comments about Islam.
Offensive comments? What are you talking about? The French are very polite, very lovely. In fact, as soon as we got here, we were treated with food and fine wines. Actually, forget the wines.
Okay, you didn't have any wine then.
We are now in the lovely company of the most beautiful lifeguards in the world. As they say here, oh la la.
So this is just a holiday for you?
No. We are serious people. And Mr. Macron is serious about promising to sell us whatever we need.
Mr. Bin Salman, Macron recently defended insulting the Prophet of Islam. And you're a Muslim.
Don't tell Macron I'm a Muslim. We need the weapons.
Aren't you even going to join the boycott of French products?
Look, I believe in freedom of speech. The whole world knows that.
Including Mr. Khashoggi, right?
He was misusing freedom of speech.
You mean just like the critics and human rights activists behind bars in Saudi Arabia?
Yes.
Okay, so the cartoons that some people found offensive don't bother you. Would you feel the same if you saw offensive cartoons about, say, yourself?
Who are these cartoonists, Mr. Memphis? Do you know them?
Well, yeah, as a matter of fact, yes. Why?
Tell them that I want to see them at the Saudi consulate in Paris.
Is that a threat?
What are you talking about? I just want to meet and appreciate these funny artists' cartoons about me.
I fear I do see what you mean. Have you met Mr. Macron on this trip?
And I've asked him to help us win in the next round of UN Human Rights Council election.
I think we might have to deal with that in a future show.
Mr. Memphis, why don't you come to our consulate in Paris for a drink and a friendly chat?
Generous offer.
We can have fun and you could lose your head.
You mean laugh my head off?
Something like that.
Let me get back to you on that. Mr. Bin Salman, bye-bye. That's Mr. Bin Salman, a welcome guest of President Macron. And to think I'm the one in quarantine for the public good. That's all for this week. Join me next time to find out who's been let off the leash, who's making cat calls, and who's howling at the moon. I'm Lembitopic, and this was Cats and Dogs.